Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is a Paso Robles native. He's a 100-point winemaker, and he's just an all-around great guy. Everybody, please welcome Don Burns. Don is a native son of Paso Robles. He had worked in and around hospitality for a number of years before returning home in 2008, where he went to learn winemaking from the one and only Justin Smith of Saxum. Today, Don's Turtle Rock label is highly sought after. The mailing list is kind of closed. I mean, you can get on the waiting list, but you're not getting any wine. But get on the list; it'll be worth the wait. And as I said, Don recently received his first 100-point score from Jeb Dunnick, and Don is also pioneering the convergence of wine and blockchain with the Rare Liquid Society. Welcome, Don.
Good to be here.
Hey, man. So I was holding up this piece of paper. It was all bullshit. There was nothing on it.
Right.
You know,
It looked good. It looked very
I look
official.
good, man. You know,
Yeah.
and I have no teleprompter. But man, first of all, I'm really excited to be here with you. You're someone who I became friends with over the pandemic.
Yeah.
And you know, I heard about you through Jeb Dunnick. You know,
Yeah.
I was a subscriber, and he wrote, "If you're looking for the next big thing coming out of Paso Robles, you need to get on the Turtle Rock list." I did. The wines came, and man, I might have to pull this out. I have to find it, but I need to pull out my review I wrote for your wine. But
It was great.
I will say, I know it's a little MJ forward, but just to have to just let Don know this. So like, there was that moment where, you know, when I was on Instagram and I had no podcast.
Right.
I just was a guy who was taking pictures of bottles and writing reviews.
Yeah.
And pairing wine with music and start a review with like some music lyrics. And I remember seeing everybody, it was the end of the year, it was like December, and everybody was like, James Suckling was doing his top, everybody's doing their top 100 wines and all this stuff. And I was like, fuck it. Do a top 10 wines, right? And so it was, you know, and I remember like everybody was thinking they knew what my number one wine was going to be of the year. And a lot of people were shocked when it was we're Rhone heads, right? I mean, we love it all, but like we're here because we love Rhone shit.
Yep.
But it was a Zinfandel Tempranillo blend,
Right.
from Paso Robles called the Westberg Ray.
I was even a little shocked. I'm not gonna lie, you know, because it meant so much to me just because that wine, to me, is such a great expression of Paso Robles with the fact that it's not something that people do. You know, we kind of do whatever we want out here, and I thought, what a great way to showcase Paso Robles is, you know, just take a couple of grapes that have not historically been put together. We just use them together because they do well together.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see that. Nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, and when we got together, when I came out in April, I was like blown away when you were like, because a lot of people you're like, dude, I was watching your countdown every day, and I was like, and like it got to number 3, and you're like, shit, I know he likes the wine,
Yeah.
and then when it got to number 2, you're like, and then it was number 1, you're like, fuck, I couldn't believe how excited you were. I'm like, I mean, here's a guy getting 97s at that point, like from Jeb, and like 95, 97.
Yeah.
And you're worried about my little top 10.
Yeah.
You know, so that
Yeah,
I thought we're kindred spirits, man.
Agreed.
You know?
No, we hit it off from the beginning, and I just appreciate your take on wine and your real personality. And, you know, there's so much bullshit in the wine industry that it's great when you can find someone who's just a real person and says what they think and isn't worried about what wines they like. You know, you like what you like, and you tell the truth. So,
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I like to start at the beginning, man. So you're a native of Paso Robles. So you were born and raised here. Kind of tell me how. Like,
no,
how?
I was born in L.A.
Okay.
But moved up here during 8th grade. So high school, college, and then most of my years after college.
Let's back up then. So
Yeah.
you're born in L.A., man. So you're LA. You're one level. You're an L.A. kid.
Yeah, yeah, San Fernando Valley. So yeah, just
Valley,
outside Valley dude.
Yeah, it's just Valley dude. Like, why did that's so sexist? Valley girl. There was no Valley.
I know. Right? We didn't get any love.
You didn't get any. It was like Valley bros.
Yeah.
So what's that like? Because you said you're a '90s hip hop guy. So what was it like growing up in the Valley?
You know, I loved it when I was there. Everything was close by. I could ride my bike anywhere. There was plenty of stuff to do. Movie theaters, arcades, whatever, basketball court, lots of people. So a lot of stuff going on. You know, my mom worked a lot, so I was able to stay busy all the time. Maybe too busy. I probably got in a little bit of trouble. Nothing bad, but you know, it was just going out at night and you know, at a young age, which probably wasn't ideal for my mom. And at that time, her brother had moved up to Paso Robles and bought a little ranch.
Okay.
He was good friends with Justin Smith's father,
Mm-hmm.
so he bought the property kind of adjacent to what is now James Berry. And I forget what it was exactly, but there was a moment where she decided it was time for us to go, and basically dragged us up to Paso Robles and put us on this 25-acre piece, and I came kicking and screaming. I hated it. I was miserable. My girlfriend was down there. My friends were down there.
I mean, and you're in LA, dude.
Yeah, and
You're LA,
to middle of nowhere.
like skate, you know, like the whole skate punk culture, you know, hip hop culture.
Yep.
And you're moving. There's fucking cows out here.
Cows and sticks and nothing for miles. Yeah.
So you're like a latchkey kid almost, right? If I'm understanding what
Yeah.
you're saying. So what did your mom do for a living?
She was an attorney. So my mom and dad split up when I was very young, about 6 months old.
Wow.
And then she went to law school, put herself through law school, became an attorney, and then put us through school. And once that was over, she actually retired from law and went to work at the post office because she wanted a job that just made her feel good, or just, you know, go through the motions, and not something that made her feel bad.
It's not hectic. So my whole family, like most of my family's worked at the post office.
Yeah.
Like my dad and my uncle was a postmaster, but it's like it is it's a service. You are providing service. We all wanted, because mail was important for you guys, my younger listeners. Mail used to be important.
A big deal.
There was no such thing as email. It was actually it was mail.
Yeah.
And like, you know, God, I'm so old. Like, you had to cash checks. Checks came in the mail.
Yeah.
There's, you know,
you had to physically go to the bank.
Exactly. Wire transfers were like for like big accounts. Like it was something like for like rich people did wire transfers.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah. But that's so funny. I didn't realize she went to work at the post office. Yeah, I mean, you just want to show up every day, and you know, good for her.
Yeah, and she liked people, you know, so she got to you know, engage with people, and so yeah, it was great.
All right, so I see why, you know, you're a Paso Robles native, because I think kind of where you go to high school kind of determines where you're from in a lot of ways. So you left your girlfriend. So were you like a big deal with the chicks when you came over? Like, were you the guy from LA? Did you have like the cooler shit than most of the guys up here? Or?
Yeah, I dressed a little different for sure, and kind of stood out a little bit. I don't know that I was the cool guy. I thought I was probably, but yeah, I think they all thought I was a little strange. So the first year was, you know, spent a lot of time, but fortunately I'd met Justin, who lived on the property next door, so quickly became friends with him. So he was who I spent most of my time with, and you know, I went to a private school in San Luis, so I wasn't up in Paso during the day. So but weekends I was always up here, you know, riding the quads and out terrorizing the land, you know.
Terrorizing the land. I love that. It's so different. I was talking to Sam Couturier, and like you got same thing as, like, you know, probably got into a little bit of trouble. Like his family was total hippies, completely.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you listen to that episode. Like he's like, my parents have never. I don't even know if they have a lock on their front door. Like, yeah, you know, like, but same thing on the quads, just tearing, ripping shit up.
Yeah, just having fun and being outside, and you know, and back then you could fill up your quad gas tank and go as far as that gas tank would take you. There was no fences. There was no... Yeah,
just all across all kinds of people's property.
Yeah, you just drive to town. Yeah, it didn't matter. You know, it didn't matter. Now it's not like that anymore. A lot of fences now.
But for good reason. I mean, people...
No, understandable, yeah.
But I hear you, man. So, where'd you go to college?
Cal Poly.
Oh, so you went right down...
Yep, right and slow, yeah. For ag business.
Okay, so why ag business?
I knew I could get in an ag business. My plan was to get in under ag business and then transfer to architecture. I still thought I wanted to be an architect at that time. and then I just kind of stayed with ag business and I had no idea what I wanted to do at that point in my life, though. I was working in a restaurant to put myself through school, and it just kind of where I ended up. It wasn't really a conscious decision.
Yeah. Now, did you? I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I was an athlete, so I went to the school. Like for us, it would be the equivalent, like 10 minutes away, like because California's so big. Just because I got a track scholarship, I got a partial track scholarship.
Nice.
Didn't know what I wanted to major in. Still haven't figured that. I think I figured out what I want to do, but there was no podcast back then. There was radio, but I majored in communications. But
okay, so there was some
of that, but
yeah.
But you mentioned your uncle, so you just wanted to get in, and then you were going to transfer. Like your uncle, what's your uncle's name? And
Tom Westberg.
Yeah, right, exactly. But had you done any work with him as a teen? Did you ever work a harvest or help out on?
Not really with my uncle.
Okay.
A little bit of James Berry Vineyard. At that time, they were growing primarily Chardonnay and selling it all. So this was probably 85 or so.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I just found that out. I just found that shit out like last year.
It's crazy, right?
Actually, Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance was doing a master class, and Josh Reynolds, who is like
crazy.
Josh, you gotta come.
Great
you gotta
palate.
come on the podcast. But he's so funny.
Fun to talk to.
He is fun to talk to. But they were talking about something, and I said something about, we talked about the elephant in the room. We'll get into later, which is the Graciano thing. But
yeah,
but he just like I was like, I had never seen him. And I was like, that's got to be Josh Reynolds, because he just knew every fucking thing about Paso Robles. And he told us, he was like, it was Chardonnay, right? And they sold it to Champagne Dutz.
A lot of it went to Fetzer.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So for people listening, like, wait, Chardonnay and Paso Robles? Like, you look at what Paso Robles is known for nowadays.
Yeah, the Rhones, the reds, full-bodied reds.
Full throttle reds.
And, it's funny because we didn't plan this, but that's kind of why I brought this wine.
Yep.
I think that whites are extremely underrated in Paso Robles. I think they've got huge potential, and we're just kind of finally scratching the surface on what's possible here.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with you. I think by and by, when most people, the average consumer, the average just wine buyer. Like, I'll use my wife as an example. When we first started dating, she's like, "Oh, I only drink red wine." They think red wine is it.
Yeah.
They don't.
Everybody starts that way.
Yeah, it's so funny, right? You go from white Zinfandel to red wine, but like, yeah, everybody's just like, "Oh, you're only serious," and they don't understand like some of the greatest wines in the world are
white wines.
White
Absolutely.
Wines. And then what are we drinking right now? Just tell people about the wine.
So this is our 19 Willow White. Willow's our daughter's name, so a lot of the wines have Willow in the name. This is a Rhone blend, so it's primarily Grenache Blanc, then some Roussanne, then a little bit of Viognier, and a touch of Picpoul.
And the Picpoul adds just a little bit of lift.
Lift, acidity. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It turns out that the Grenache Blanc in this area really maintains its acidity well.
Yeah.
So you don't really need the Picpoul, but it's also fun to put in there. A lot of people don't know what it is. It's kind of a fun, conversation.
Make people think. Yeah.
Yeah. What is Picpoul? Yeah. I said, well, just, but it does. It brings some acidity. And we do about 18 months in a combination of New French, Neutral French, and a tiny bit of stainless steel.
On the lees or?
On the lees the whole time. Little to no sulfur for most of its life. Just a little bit of sulfur before bottling. Really kind of tried to make it a little bit like a white Burgundy, but just with Rhone varietals. Because I wanted a serious white. I didn't want to just do there's so many beautiful Rhones out there, but they're just aromatic and fun. I want to do more of a serious white, and I think we got there.
I think you got there.
Yeah.
I think you got there. Okay, so like you said, you did some work at the James Berry Vineyard, not so much with your uncle.
Yeah.
You put yourself through school by working in restaurants. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So after you graduate, what did you do? Where'd you head?
So I was still in San Luis Obispo. I was running a restaurant in the downtown area there, and I had an opportunity to deliver a sailboat to Florida. So I actually had no idea what I wanted to do with my life at the time. So grabbed 4 buddies and about 9 surfboards, and jumped on a boat in Newport Beach, and went sailing for about a year and a half.
So like when I hear deliver a sailboat, I'm like, oh, so you just hitched up the sailboat and drove it.
No, we sailed it. Yeah. It was about, we actually left Newport Beach, and then I was actually the only one of the 5 guys that made the whole trip. And we ended up in South Florida about a year and a half later, down through the Panama Canal.
I was like, yeah, what's the route? So
just south. So we stopped in every port in Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, then through the canal, and then kind of straight up to Jamaica, and then up through the Bahamas and back to Florida.
That's like fucking sick.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was also scary.
I was gonna say, but like, that was the next question. I'm like, dude, you're sailing, a couple of four or 5 gringos. Yeah, you're surfing. You know, you're young.
Yeah,
having a good time. But like, dude, those sketch ports are sketchy wherever you are in the world.
For sure.
For that reason, like, was any hairy situations?
There was a couple. More weather though too. You know, I didn't really underestimated the power of the sea, and the really bad part was that I had actually only been sailing once in my life when I took the boat, and I was kind of the captain. So
that's what I was like, do you know I even out like to
needless
sail?
To say, I was a little naive. But we got through it, and yeah, saw some crazy storms. You know, lightning storms, huge seas, knocked the mast in the water a few times. Had a broken rudder, you know, but it really, I think, probably did more for forming who I am as a person than any of those years of school or anything else I've done. You know, it really kind of forced you to grow up, forced you to be responsible, be serious, and just what an incredible opportunity to be able to see all those places too.
Yeah, and the way you did that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, so you end up in Florida. Where'd you say you parked the boat?
We were in Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, okay.
So it was actually at North Palm Beach.
Okay.
And so I immediately had to get a job because I was broke after being gone for a year and a half. And Ruth's Chris Steakhouse was kind of right across the way from the marina I was staying in. So I went there and got a job and ended up working with that company for about 10 years.
What'd you do? Program. So did you start in the wine program, or did you start as a server?
I started as a server.
Okay.
And then got into they were going through a pretty big growth phase. So I opened a bunch of restaurants all over the country for them. And then went through they used the Gallo Wine Academy, so I went through the Gallo Wine Academy program.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of worked my way up in bar manager, wine, you know, doing some wine purchasing and things like that.
So, like, what's a wine program look at like a Ruth Chris? Because, you know, I mean,
yeah, it's pretty corporate. You know, I think you could probably predict about 90% of what's on that list.
Yeah, Camus.
A lot of Napa cabs. You know, the General Steakhouse, a lot of Super Tuscans,
Bordeaux's,
Burgundies.
First Growth stuff too. Yeah,
yeah,
you know? Like they have the money.
They do, and they have the buying power.
The buying power to do it.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, shit.
We would get like 10% of the list as a individual store to kind of hone it into nothing. Yeah. So you got like, you know, a few bottles, and usually you had a customer who wanted something, and you used your 10% just to get your, you know, the people what they wanted. So
there's
not a lot of freedom.
Yeah, I was gonna and then this is before the Psalm movies, everybody. So it's like they're not these curated lists.
Yeah. No. This was pretty cookie cutter.
I want to. So I didn't even know. It makes sense because everybody does. Like Gallo has a wine program. So did you go off for 2 weeks? What did that look like? Because this was this was electronic learning was around, but people.
Yeah, but this was actually pretty much computer based, online based. I think it was one of the first ones. And the program was actually pretty cool in that it concentrated a little bit more on sites, growing, you know, kind of the big picture, and not just wine analytics and sensory evaluation and you know, region, and they did all that stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, it was a pretty good program.
Yeah. So you're with like what's it with the Ruth Chris group, we'll call them, for like 10 years. based out of Florida? Did you, as you were opening these stores, were you moving to new locations to open stores, new markets?
Yeah, I would leave for about 2 months at a time per restaurant, but I was always still based out of the Palm Beach area.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, as I was getting more involved in wine, I was like, wait a second, I grew up and my buddy, had started Saxum in the meantime, and I'd go home and see him during harvest, maybe work a day and hang out with him. And just every year I did it, Paso would grow a little more, a little better food, a little more culture, a little more music. I started to miss it more and more. And then met my wife. And as soon as she became pregnant, I was like, that's it. We're out of here. We're going back. I want to raise my kid in Paso.
So Claudia's from...
She's from Delaware, actually.
Okay.
But she had relocated to Florida as well. So
it's still I'm from New Jersey, so Delaware is South. It's like, to me, she's still from the South.
Yeah. Yeah.
Southern girl.
Yeah. For sure.
Really cool. And so during that time, though, did you have the opportunity, because a lot of my friends who are somms in New York or who are the bar manager, like when someone orders like one of those baller bottles,
yeah.
did they pour you on like?
Yeah, that was the one really great part of that job, is I had access to a lot of wines and a lot of, one thing I didn't realize in California was that, everybody on the East Coast drinks imports.
Yep.
And out here we drink a lot of California wine.
Yep.
We get kind of like California palate,
Yeah.
So I really got to kind of expand the horizons and try some new stuff. And we had a really great clientele that had, the means to purchase some really beautiful bottles. And that was fabulous.
Yeah. Anything that like sticks out like from that time there, like
a bottle?
A bottle that you're
95 Reyes.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's probably to this day the best wine I've ever, personally my favorite wine.
Right.
Yeah. That's when I realized that Grenache was what it was. It definitely inspired me. Nice.
All right. So you moved back home to Paso Robles.
Yep.
And you needed a job. So what did you do?
Well, I went back to what I knew, so I immediately got a restaurant job.
Okay.
And then went over to my buddy Justin's house and asked him if he would teach me how to make wine, because that was my goal, was to start a winery. And he said, well, I can't really afford to pay you. He's like, but you can come. So I showed up every day.
Very savvy of you, Justin.
Bring him coffee.
Getting that free labor. Exactly.
Yeah. I'd show up with coffee every morning and little by little start learning the process and what he did. And I think it was about a year in, maybe a year and a half in, he pulled me aside and said, well, if I can't get rid of you, I'm going to have to start paying you, because I'm starting to feel guilty. And so then I became an employee for Saxum, and then that was 15 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah, it's been my 15th harvest.
Wow. So why'd you go to Justin? I mean, I get he's an outstanding, but like, tell me about your uncle, because that is like how that's kind of like how this Paso Robles got on your map.
For sure,
your uncle, your mom's brother,
and he was a winemaker as well. So he started with Justin Winery, I believe, and then there was a winery called Creston Manor that was owned by Alex Trebek, and Peachy Canyon. He was the winemaker there for a while, but eventually he landed with Diageo, and he was working at a massive facility up in San Miguel, making huge numbers of wine. So he became kind of a corporate winemaker, so to speak.
I mean,
and which is fine. I mean,
job
it was
security.
a great job. He was probably one of the top paid winemakers in the area, and that's what he was looking for. He didn't want to start a brand, but he had a brand in the past. But once he started working for them, there was a no competition clause, so he had to kind of shut it down.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. So my idea was that I would kind of restart his brand and maybe partner with him, but I wanted to learn the hands-on, small, boutique quality, not the, chemistry, enology side, more just the growing and the farming and the making really expressive wines for sight.
Okay. Yeah, right on. Did he ever sell his vineyard? What became of the vineyard?
He did. We did a little work. It wasn't a big vineyard. It was probably only a few acres, but there was a little bit more room to plant. And in 2014, he decided to retire. He and his wife, Peggy, wanted to move to Mexico, which they ended up doing, and they sold the place. And I just wasn't in a position couldn't have the funds. I actually looked into it with a partner, and we almost bought it. But then, my wife was like, let's just do it by ourselves. And that's something that probably the best decision we ever made.
Wow.
Because being able to have full control, not under anybody else's ideas.
Oh, yeah, man.
It's a big difference. And it was a longer road
Yeah.
and a little more painful probably, but I think now we're grateful.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to similar but different. My dad had bought a piece of land, a vacant lot, and he passed in 2012 and left to my mom. And like my mom put in her will that like when she died, like we had to sell this vacant lot and split it like 6 ways with me and her grandchildren. And so like it's hard for me to go past that lot now,
right?
Because there's like a fucking huge house on it now.
Yeah,
and it's
like,
and it's all happened like since 2019, and just
wow.
And so like I feel you that you have your own land, but like there's got to be, for me, there's just like if you could have did it by yourself, it would have been worth it, but it wouldn't have been worth it to do it.
Yeah, and it probably didn't fit
your program now.
The program now, and it would have been a nostalgic, emotional purchase, not a business purchase. But I do drive by it and look at it, and fond memories. Now there's a couple beautiful houses up there, and but we ended up in a great spot.
Yeah,
so
but it got you here. Yeah, so that's why I wanted more of that story. Okay, so Justin, you come on full time as an employee. So what was your title, and what's your title now at Saks? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's we don't really do titles at Saxum.
Oh.
It's kind of a I guess I would be the assistant winemaker.
Okay.
That's
number one homie.
My title.
I'm the number one homie.
But at the time, it was just myself and Justin and Mark Adams.
Yep.
And Justin was obviously the guru and the lead and the mentor, and just such an incredible farmer and such great ideas and so willing to take chances. Didn't really have any preconceived notion of how to make wine. Just kind of did his own thing. So we just all worked in the cellar. Went out and picked, whatever we had to do to get the vintages done. And, I have a little bit bigger team now. We have some cellar hands and more of a HR department and a big vineyard crew and things like that. So a little less, but still pretty hands-on. Yeah.
So 15 vintages. So you've seen this thing you've seen it evolve.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have to think, it's you've had your hands on a lot of high scoring wines. Just
I have had.
I mean, even before. I mean, setting the precedent for what you're doing now. But you've had your hands on a lot of
great wines.
Yeah,
and seeing the evolution. I think his wines are different now than they were in the mid 2000s. I think they're getting better. I think they get better every year. But yeah, it's the opportunity to. I joke with people that the way I make wine, the things I do seem so simple. I don't feel like I have a huge role in what creates these wines. It's really the grapes doing it. But from what I've seen, I guess my perception is a little bit skewed because I only know trying to make things with.
I only know the best. I only know the best of the best. Speaking of the best, can I have a little bit more of that white?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And I also want to talk. You made a good point. You said so with your Willow White, you wanted to showcase the potential of white wines in the region. So Justin made recently, I guess you guys about the same time you started
right
making
around
white?
The same time, yeah. And it was kind of separately too. I had already found a vineyard where I could source some fruit, and he'd already had some in the vineyard and planted some more. So it's, even though we were working right next to each other every day, we didn't hey, let's make a white. He just decided to do it, and I decided to do it separately. And they are somewhat similar varietal wise. His is Grenache Blanc, Roussanne, and Chenin.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fabulous wine. But similar to, he drinks a lot of white Burgundy, a lot of Chablis, as do I.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I mean, we had it last night at dinner. It was fabulous. His 19 as well.
You said something earlier which I thought was very interesting, and kind of true. That overall, East Coast versus West Coast wine consumer behavior, definitely the wine geeks or the wine. What's the word? It's not really the wine. I don't know. I can't think of the word, but it'll come to me. But that knowledgeable wine crowd on the East Coast, they're drinking the Bordeaux, they're drinking the Burgundy, they're drinking the Rioja, they're drinking Europe.
For sure. Which
makes sense because we're closer to Europe and New York.
That's where it all comes in.
And that's, and I've said this, someone questioned this, and they said, oh, that makes sense. I was like, New York is actually the greatest wine city in the world because we get all the European stuff, but then we get stuff from the West Coast and Washington. Like I'm sure, like, there's not a whole lot of California stuff in Europe is my whole point.
For
sure. Go to Paris, there might be a few bottles, whereas we have access.
Though.
We have access to everything in New York, so that's what makes it a really good wine drinking city. And then the average consumer on the West Coast, you have all these fucking wineries.
Yeah.
So you're just going up.
Close. What's
it's
convenient.
Close.
Yeah.
And and then like I said, average person, like, we'll go anywhere to a tasting room and buy some bottles, right? So and you can buy, not recommended unless it's late at night and you're trying to hook up and score. You can get wine at a gas station in California.
You can.
Yeah. But what I found when I moved out here, though, and like you said, winemakers, however, in California drink a ton of European shit.
Absolutely.
The winemakers do.
Yeah. We don't, I don't drink a lot of Paso wines.
Yeah.
It's just, and for me, it's kind of two things. One is, obviously, I'm tasting it. I'm around it all the time. So I want something different. And the other thing is, it's when I'm drinking, especially Central Coast wines, I'm working. Like, I'm analyzing. It's not. I'm not just having a glass of wine and enjoying it. I want to pop a bottle with my wife, have a couple glasses, and just relax and enjoy it and appreciate the wine. Not, oh, I wonder how much whole cluster they use and what kind of wood they use.
You can't help
I wonder what they picked this at. I wonder what is this a northern exposure. I'm just constantly grinding in my brain, and that just takes some of the pleasure out of it.
Totally.
So we do drink a lot of Chablis.
Yeah, that's
just
nice.
cheaper than white Burgundy.
Yeah, exactly.
Although it's getting up there too.
Well, it all is. Yeah, I know that's the funny thing. Like, sometimes, like, when people want to have me around, I'm like, I'm not fucking analyzing wines, bro. I came here to drink, man.
Yeah, this is supposed to be fun. Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun.
Absolutely.
And that's why I like hanging out with winemakers. You guys don't ask me to fucking, what are you getting in the wine?
Yeah, it's and that can be fun on if that's what the purpose is to be analyzing a wine, but that's what we do for work. That's not what we want to do for fun. Exactly. Just so happens that the product that we make for work is the same product that we want to enjoy when we're having fun.
Totally. Totally.
And we'll drink some tequila every now and then.
Yeah. Tequila still messes me up.
That's the idea, though, right?
But not in a good way, like in like a like a Hangover movie kind of way. Like, so what happened?
Blackouts.
Yeah, I had a really bad tequila experience when I was like 21.
Never recovered?
Well, no, I mean, I did. I had a margarita last week, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Not my go-to.
I hear you.
That's another thing too. Cocktails. I'm fond of going out and get a cocktail before dinner.
For sure.
And then champagne.
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
That whole industry has come so far too. It's not like it used to be where you go get a Cosmopolitan. Now it's taken on its own life.
Mixology is,
massive.
Massive. Like, all the different types of bitters and like botanicals and bartenders making their own simple syrups and infusions. It's almost, I would call it the wine effect, I think, because wine has grown.
I agree.
It's caused growth in other areas of the beverage industry. So awesome. Started drinking early. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little light. Good thing I ate a bagel.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
We haven't made it past the white yet.
I know. I know. We're Mike, where are you?
Yeah.
He might not make this episode.
He might not make it. Well,
well.
Not our fault.
It's not our fault. So you working with Justin?
Yeah.
Mark Adams. Shout out. Just give you a shout. I have to give you a shout out. MCA over at Ledge, man. Love you, brother, man. He was actually the guy. I know you're fun, but he was the guy who like first reached out from here.
Yeah.
To me and
during the pandemic. Yeah.
And kind of really made the connection. And then like we talked, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I work with Justin and Don Burns." So that's what I was like. Okay.
All right. I see what's going on.
I see what's going on here. See how you guys roll.
Yeah.
So when was your Oh, actually, whose property abutted Jamesbury? Your uncle's, right? Is that
My uncle's, yeah.
Okay. So there's people out there, because I have all types of listeners, and I have people in the wine business but don't really understand the Jamesbury Vineyard. I know you don't own it, but talk about, you make a lot of wines from there.
I do. I make one wine pretty much, because he's got that fruit on lockdown.
Yeah, I mean,
as I don't blame him.
Exactly. I mean, so yeah, let me see. I'm stand corrected. You make one wine from there, and but I often, it's referred to as an American Grand Cru vineyard. Like you said, it was initially planted to Chardonnay, which was being sold to make sparkling wine.
To make sparkling, yeah.
Talk about the significance of Jamesbury Vineyard to you and the area in general.
Yeah, I think that how it shifted from Chardonnay was a gentleman by the name of John Albin, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
We love John Albin.
Mr. Roan himself.
Yep.
He approached Justin's dad, and he had some suitcase clones from the Rhone Valley, and asked him if he would plant some there just to see. He said, I think your site would be really good for this. So really, it was kind of the first, is before Toblis Creek came in. And so some of the first Syrah in the area, and, they kind of took a chance, and that's what's now Bone Rock.
Okay.
For the Bone Rock terraces. Okay. And it just showed the potential, I think, for sure. And then Toblis came in and started bringing more clones in, and so Rhones became a little bit more available. But from a quality perspective, I think that's the first vineyard that really showed that Paso can make internationally renowned wines. Really, really great wines that have good acidity. They have life. They have longevity. We've been kind of pigeonholed as a region that does these fruit bombs with high alcohol, and they'll fall apart. We drank a 2001 last night at dinner, and it was fabulous. It was still holding up, still great. And so then a lot of the accolades that came to Saxum, primarily because of that vineyard. The Jamesbury Vineyard was his wine that was 100 points in Wine of the Year. Really just brought eyes to the area and allowed us to grow and bring in better vintners, better winemakers, because it's great to have one or two great producers, but that doesn't really get the attention that you need. So when you start getting groups of people, and I think that's too why Paso is such a tight community, is we were all working together to try and improve the overall quality of the vineyards and the overall quality of the wines.
Yeah, which is really cool. And that's a great point. I mean, that's why Burgundy is known, because like you just about every it's different because it's so small, but every producer is making great wines.
Yeah.
I was just at a Barolo tasting Barolo lunch the other day, and the producer was like, there's not a bad bottle of wine coming out of Barolo now, because the region has worked together for the quality to, like, everyone, all
clean
ships rise with the tide.
Absolutely.
And I love when you have that collaboration.
For sure. There's no like hidden information. Like, Justin doesn't hide the way he makes wines. It's just meticulousness and striving for perfection and being an incredibly talented farmer, and that's another thing that makes Jamesbury so special, is that, he still controls the farming on that himself. Before that, his dad, and nobody knows that dirt better than he does. And I think that everybody's kind of grown off of that, so they're almost like I call him and Stefan Aseo kind of the two godfathers of wine in Paso. I feel like just about every quality winery or winemaker in this area has touched them at some point in their career previously. So I think they kind of like started the whole thing.
Yeah. Tell people about Stefan L'Aventure for people who may not know the story.
Yeah.
Of why he came here.
Yeah. The adventure, is the name of his wine, and he was in Bordeaux.
Yep.
And he didn't like the idea that they controlled everything about the process. What's the spacing of your vines, what you can blend, what you can't blend. So he came out here and settled on Paso Robles. I'm not completely clear on the details. I think he looked at a few different areas, but decided on Paso and wanted to make, I think originally it was a Cabernet Syrah.
Yeah, that's this, and there's, you have to have folklore and myths, but that's what I heard too.
Like I believe that.
He really believed that was he wanted to blend. He thought the Syrah for here and the Cabernet would just marry so well together.
Yep, and he was right.
Yeah,
he made some great wines.
Yeah.
And the common thread between him and Justin, very different in the winery, but they're just both so meticulous in the vineyard. Like they both understand that perfect grapes is the only way to make perfect wine. There's no other way around it. There's no loophole. There's no, there's no.
But I want to make natural wine.
Have fun with that. Yeah.
Had to do the natural wine day.
Yeah, I've had a couple that.
I've had a few that I was like, wow,
right.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had one. I was like, wow, I'm seriously impressed at your 11.5% Grenache that has this much flavor. I was like,
right. You did a great job.
You did it. You nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I even feel that way about, some Bordeaux's. Like, I know how prestige it is to drink old Bordeaux's and what a treat it is. But honestly, I'll be at a dinner and there'll be an old, first growth Bordeaux on the table, and there'll be some Grenaches and some Chateauneufs and some other stuff. And at the end of the night,
listen,
the Bordeaux's not in my glass.
You exactly. You said it about me. I was like, that shit is tired, man.
Yeah.
Like literally when you go to those tastings, I'm so grateful that I get to drink with people who
absolutely
who are generous with their cellars and their collections, but like you're fucking searching for a tasting note of positivity.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's, again, getting into what we were saying earlier about the pleasure of drinking wine. Like, I'm here to drink this wine and enjoy it. And, I do understand the significance of tasting those wines, and I'm super grateful, like you said, to be able to try those wines. But it's not what I'm going to pick if I'm going to go home and open a bottle.
Exactly. And there's like, this is like just timely this week. Like I said, they brought a 1996 library wine, this Barolo tasting, and like everything was between like 2010 and 2013 or 2014.
Right.
So they weren't super old.
Right.
But like the 96 was actually my favorite. And I said, this is rare. I was like,
right.
I was like, I said, I'm not on. I said, I like older women and younger wines. Like I'm the opposite of most dudes.
You're backwards.
I'm backwards.
Yeah.
And most dudes who are like, with money. Well, because I don't have money, maybe that would change. And I said, but I got to be honest. Like it's still. I said we caught it on a good day. The fruit was there.
Yeah. I think
like
Barolo is a good example of that too. Like some wines, I think do handle age and still show fruit. But I like fruit in my wine.
Me too. I've
like
always
aromatics
said
and fruit. And
when I started, I was like, listen, a grape is a fruit, so I need some fruit in my wine first and foremost. I love how grapes are conduits for other flavors, but we got to start there first. Let's start with the fruit.
I don't want to have to dissect a wine to try and find the good traits.
Exactly.
I want to just put it in my mouth and be like, wow, this is exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've said this a few times, and I think it's worth delving into is I think when people think winemaker, especially when you see the Italian dudes are always like dressed, fucking ascots and all that shit. But like you've mentioned farming.
For sure.
Talk about, and you said this, perfect wines come from perfect grapes, but like, for people who don't understand, like I remember meeting Gary Pisoni. He said, "I'm a farmer. Why you want to come visit me?" This was in 1999. Yeah. So like, talk about the role of farming because you majored in agriculture. So dazzle us with your knowledge. Talk about the role of farming and actually the final product.
Yeah, I think that kind of the most simplistic way to look about it is I often compare it to like a peach tree. One of our biggest, generally when you're purchasing grapes, there's the farmer and there's the winemaker, and there's always this kind of conflict of the farmer wants to grow more fruit to make more money, the winemaker wants to grow less fruit, and that's just one aspect of the farming. But the quality comes from like on a peach tree. If you don't thin out your peaches, if you grow all the peaches it wants to produce, they never get ripe, they don't taste great, or you just get a tree that only throws a few peaches, and you taste that peach and it's fantastic. It's pretty similar with fruit load, but as far as how you take care of the soil, the site itself, where is it? You can't be growing fruit for the masses and expect to make something special. And I think really when people started switching over to what we call acreage contracts, at least for purchasing fruit, it allows us to control the farming on the fruit that we're producing, and we're not buying tonnage. We're just buying an area, and we get to control the farming. And I think it's really important too to know your specific area. I don't think you can just be a great farmer everywhere. You know, if I went to Walla Walla, it would be a whole new learning curve.
Yeah.
You know, and like for me, Willow Creek District is kind of where I lay my hat, and that's because that's what I've been around my whole life. I've been around James Berry. I understand how that area works, how we can produce great wines there. But yeah, the farming is really everything. And the other example I use is, you know, if you take a steak, if you get just a regular supermarket steak, take it home, pound it, tenderize it, marinate it, put it on a most expensive grill in the world, it's still just okay. You go buy a prime ribeye, you know, from a producer that you know does a great job, a little salt and pepper and a few minutes on each side. It's the best steak you ever had. That's how I look at the grapes. You know, the higher the quality of the fruit and picking it at the optimum time is really the biggest thing that I do in the winery. You know, it's not what I do in the winery. It's getting that fruit at the right time and nurturing it, you know, just letting it become what it wants to become.
So speaking of which, we'll drill down on Willow Creek in a moment here. What is it about Paso Robles that makes it such a unique, overall unique terroir?
I think
is there a theme that runs through?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd kind of specifically some of the more western sites.
Right. So there's
it's
east side and west side.
East side and west side. Yeah, and it's two different expressions. I think what makes the west side unique is obviously the soil. We have linicoloto soil, high lime content, shale, fractured shale, which is great for the roots. So a really good growing medium for the grapes. And then also we have those huge diurnal swings with what we call the Templeton Gap, you know, similar to Chateauneuf de Pop with lemon straws. It can be 98 degrees during the day, and it can be 50 degrees that night. So those grapes, you know, they're not just constantly building sugar. You're going to have to pick them. They're building sugar. Then they get to rest at night. They get to develop their phenolics. They get to become physiologically ripe and not just sugar ripe, you know. So we don't even look at sugar when we're picking grapes. We're looking at taste and flavor and tannin structure.
Yeah, because that's typically, and I hate to go there, but like everybody's talking about, like, when you look at harvest and you know, if you look at, like, Instagram's a good place to do this just because people are posting that shit, right? But, like, you know, I don't care what bricks you pick at. I care how much flavor you get in your fucking wine.
Exactly.
Right.
And every site gives you a different level of bricks, and some sites might give you different levels of bricks from year to year. You know, I might pick at 25.5 one year. I might pick at 27.5 the next year. It just, we're not out there with you know, a little tool testing sugar every day. We're just eating the grapes and deciding, is it ready? Do we like it? You know, are the tannins where we want them to be? Is the acid still there? And I think that's another thing with those cold nights is we have the ability to hang fruit for a long period of time because our acid doesn't fall out. So a lot of regions in the world are picking because the acid's dropping out of the wine and they have to pick. Well, we don't have that problem, so we can really go for optimum flavor and aromatics and tannin structure and know that it's still going to have acid.
So, like, where did this notion that Paso wines are just one note and lack acidity come from? Yeah, I mean, I would have to say it's got to come from. No, I want to hear where you think it comes from because you're from here. You make wine from here.
Yeah,
I'm insignificant in this question. Remove yourself.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I would guess that a lot of the wineries in the area in the early days were farming larger production vineyards. They didn't really have the viticulture practices that we use now. It's probably a mix of east side and west side fruit, you know, probably overcropped. And I think there was this big push for Zinfandel at the time too. And it was kind of like when the Zinfandel craze was going on and people wanted these big, juicy fruit bomb zins. And I think there was a lot of people making that, and it was what they sold and kind of what it got known for. Mm-hmm. It was good. I mean, I guess a lot of people were able to sell wine, and it did bring some wine to the region. But I think it also just really kind of started us off on the wrong foot as far as connoisseurs who are looking for things with acid and balance. And I don't think people think of Paso, even prior to this day, of wines with a ton of balance. And I think our wines have incredible balance. And you mentioned, brick levels. The other thing is our alcohol content. We do have slightly higher alcohol.
Yeah.
But
don't fuck around in Paso if you're an amateur.
It'll get you pretty good.
I remember, I'd been here when I lived out in Santa Barbara. I actually went over to Tablas for a lunch with Robert Haas, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But I remember when I came out in April of 21, we sat down for the first time. And it was Easter. I didn't, just me and my wife, I have a grown daughter and a child doesn't live at home. So we don't really celebrate Easter. So we were like,
right.
I didn't even know when I came out, but I remember stopping, to see MCA. Him and C were at their in-laws house.
Okay.
And he had some great shit. He had some Bandol Rosé, he had the Bandol Mourvèdre. And he's like, can I get you anything? I was like, no, just some water. I went for my water. He's like, oh. He's like, you got the Paso shakes. Yeah, I mean,
it was on the way out of town.
Yeah, on the way out of town. And the wines, they are incredibly balanced, but just be careful when you come here because there's a fair amount of stuff. There's a fair amount of stuff over 14.
Yeah, even over 15.
And I was gonna. I'm not.
I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with that either.
I
didn't want to scare people, but most of the good shit is over 15. So
and when I see people that we have people that come in like, oh, what's the alcohol content? And I said, well, taste the wine first.
Exactly.
Is it integrated? Can you tell there's alcohol?
Right.
Is it burning your nose? Is it? Are you feeling it on your palate? And I think that our wines hold so much fruit and have so much character that the alcohol is integrated and it is a balanced wine.
Totally. Speaking of balanced wine, let's taste some reds, man.
Sure.
What do we got for reds?
We've got.
What'd you bring?
I brought a couple things. I had to bring the Westburg Red.
You had to bring the
Westburg.
Westburg.
You
had to bring
it. 20.
Yep.
I've got the Willis Cuvée, which is our kind of CDP type blend.
Yep.
And then I brought the G2 Syrah.
Which order should we taste these in?
I'd say let's do the Willis first.
Okay. Perfect.
So Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and some Graziano.
Oh, so good. We
get to get in the Graziano.
Oh my God, that is so.
And I did kind of.
It really does. It's got a Shadow Neuf-esque thing going on. Obviously, it's clearly Paso Robles,
right?
But it's dialed in. You got that anise, that spice, and Shadow Neuf. I love the color on this thing. What's the blend on this?
I'm gonna have to look.
That's okay.
And I don't have my glasses, so you might have to read it.
Oh man, we both got. I got older ass eyes.
It's always Grenache heavy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. This is 48 Grenache, 23 Syrah, 15 Mataro, and 14 Graziano. Okay. So it is Grenache dominant. I like that it's you got 4 different varietals in there. Although at the end of the day, it's what does it taste like? But
right.
It is an homage to Shadow Neuf, which they got 13 red grapes they can blend.
Yep.
And a lot of people are just going to, which is fine because the wines are delicious. But it's fun to see. This is kind of like a throwback to old style Shadow Neuf.
Sure. Yeah.
More than 2 grapes in it.
And we, there's a lot of grapes in all of our wines because we do co-ferment everything. We rarely do a single varietal of any grapes.
Plums. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ripe ass plums, bro.
And I did want to bring 20s because I know 20s are a kind of a hot topic.
They're a hot topic right now.
And we were really, really pleased with our 20s. And we did throw some wine away that we felt like had smoke taint. We actually tested all our wines and realized that it's such a crapshoot that we went straight on sensory. And anything that we felt like had any smoke at all, we just threw away.
Oh, good Lord. So good Lord, because I said really ripe black fruits, blackberry plums. So big boy, 15.7.
Yep.
No heat, but the acid, there's no cloying. It's just like crisp and clean, no caffeine, feeling Turtle Rock.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we can do here. Most people produce a 15.7 wine and it just falls off the back.
Yeah.
There's just nothing there.
Yeah.
But we have such great acidity in the grapes. So,
all right. So,
super fortunate.
What are some of the fruit sources in Willows?
Willows is primarily G2 and vineyard called Cruise Vineyard,
Okay.
which is Jack Creek Winery's estate vineyard. And
Is
it's
that the J-A-K, Jack? No,
Jack Creek, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it's actually the furthest west vineyard in the Willow Creek appellation. So it's a little bit cooler. That's what I just picked last week. It's always the last thing to come off the vine. But it really gives you great red fruit aromatics and soft tannins, and it's a great spot. And probably a little bit of Jamesberry in there too.
Okay. And so, what's the difference between Mataro and Mourvedre?
So Mataro is really just California Mourvedre.
Okay.
It was all Mataro here.
Yep.
At one point, and I don't think we were even allowed to use Mourvedre on the labels.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it was possible to start calling things Mourvedre, everybody kind of jumped on the bandwagon. Like, oh yeah. But we do it for kind of two reasons. One, Saxon kind of did it at the same time, or he actually did it before me, and he was like, I think we've given the French enough credit. Let's go back to our roots. That's one reason. And then the other is we actually use a clone that is Mataro. So it's actually the clone came from the old California Mataro on the vineyards.
Okay.
That's what we planted in the vineyards.
So now, I mean, you're not a, what's the word? I don't know. You're not a grape professor.
No.
As I'm drinking 15-7 at it's not even noon.
It's Paso.
Yeah. Actually, it is past noon.
Oh, perfect. Let's have another glass.
Yeah, exactly. So what's maybe Mataro, Mourvedre, Monastrell?
Yeah. So that would be California,
Spain,
France, and Spain.
Okay, so
Yeah.
They're all kind of related.
Yeah, they're, genetically they are all
okay,
related.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of genetics, what's Graciano? Where's it from?
Or Monastrell.
Yeah. Exactly.
From Spain.
Okay.
And Graziano was a happy mistake. I'm sure you've heard the story of most of the Monastrell planted in California in the last 15 years is actually Graziano, but we all were under the impression that it was the Spanish clone of Mourvedre. Actually, Justin Smith was the one that diagnosed it. We were sitting outside the winery one day looking at the vineyard, and we had the Monastrell right next to the Mourvedre, and we're like, there's just not the same genetics. Like, they're just so different, we loved the Monastrell for what it gave us, but it was just different. And he did some research, and I think it's Graziano. So we picked a leaf, sent it off to Davis, and had it DNA'd. And sure enough, it was Graziano, which created a huge shitstorm.
Yeah, I know, right?
There's some people that are still not happy about that. We didn't really care because we've actually planted Graziano since then.
Yeah.
And use it. It's great for color and acid and bright cranberry. It's a beautiful grape. So we love it.
Yeah.
But some people that were making Mourvedre-based wines that were no longer Mourvedre-based wines, they were like, well, we're still going to call it Mourvedre. And I get it, and again, does it really matter?
Yeah,
if the wine's great,
I mean, for me, Graciano is, I love Mourvedre, but it's a little bit sexier, like, to find, like, I love that. It's kind of like, It's kind of like Justin was sitting there, he's like, I don't know. That other kid kind of favors the milkman, right? It's like,
totally.
Yeah. It's like the mother's the same, but yeah.
Mourvedre notoriously has the acid fall off.
Yeah.
Graziano has a ton of acid, so they actually do well together.
Yeah. So I'm hearing something in the background.
Yeah.
And so actually been going for a minute, so actually might be time to take a quick break.